Captain Jake Morrison watched the sunrise over New Haven Colony from his office window. The golden light painted the city buildings in warm colors. 3 million people lived here on this peaceful world, far from Earth. They had farms, schools, and families. Children played in the parks while their parents worked in the offices and factories. Jake picked up his coffee and smiled. Today was supposed to be a quiet day. His patrol ships were running their normal routes around the planet. Nothing ever happened here. New Haven was too far from the main trade routes to attract pirates or trouble. Dr. Lisa Carter was working in her laboratory across the city. She studied alien plants and animals to help the colonists grow better crops. Her husband Paul worked as an engineer, maintaining the power systems that kept the colony running. They had been married for 10 years and loved their simple life. On New Haven, Lisa looked up from her microscope when her computer beeped. Strange readings were coming from the orbital sensors. She frowned and checked the data again. Large objects were moving toward the planet from deep space. "Paul, come look at this," she called to her husband. Paul walked over and studied the screen. His face went pale. "Those are ships, big ones, and there are a lot of them." Across the city, Jake's communication device buzzed. Lieutenant Sam Parker, a young Marine stationed at the orbital defense platform, was calling with urgent news. "Captain Morrison, we have unknown vessels approaching the planet. They're huge, sir. Bigger than anything I've ever seen." Jake set down his coffee. "How many ships, Lieutenant?" "At least 50, maybe more. They're not responding to our communication attempts." Jake felt a cold fear in his stomach. New Haven had only 12 small defense ships. They were meant to chase away pirates, not fight a real battle. "Keep trying to contact them," Jake ordered, "and get all our ships ready for launch." The massive, alien fleet moved closer to New Haven. The ships were dark and angular, covered in weapon ports. They belonged to the Zethran Dominion, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. The Zethrans were tall, gray-skinned aliens who believed in solving problems with violence. On the lead ship, Admiral Kreck studied the human colony below. His orders were simple: destroy everything. The Zethran government had decided that humans were becoming too dangerous. This attack would send a message to Earth and the other human colonies. "Begin the bombardment," Admiral Kreck commanded. Lisa Carter was still trying to understand the sensor readings when the first energy beams hit the planet. The ground shook violently. Through her laboratory window, she saw explosions lighting up the sky over the city center. "They're attacking us," Paul shouted. The bombardment was devastating. The alien weapons were designed to destroy entire cities. Buildings collapsed as energy beams cut through them like paper. The main spaceport exploded in a ball of fire. Schools, hospitals, and homes vanished in seconds. Jake Morrison ran to his ship as the orbital defense platform sent out desperate calls for help. "All colonists, this is not a drill. Evacuate immediately. Seek shelter in the underground bunkers." But there was no time. The alien attack was too fast and too powerful. Lieutenant Parker tried to fight back from the orbital platform. His small weapons fired at the massive alien ships, but the shots bounced off their shields like raindrops. One of the Zethran cruisers turned its main guns toward the platform. "This is Parker to all stations. The platform is under direct attack. We can't hold them off. Tell my family I—" The communication cut off as the orbital platform exploded. Paul Carter grabbed his wife's hand and pulled her toward the emergency exit. "We have to get to the bunkers now." They ran through the corridors as the building shook around them. Other scientists and workers were fleeing in panic. Some didn't make it. A direct hit collapsed the entire west wing of the research facility. Outside, the city was burning. The beautiful parks where children played were now craters. The schools were piles of rubble. Families who had been eating breakfast together were gone forever. Jake Morrison managed to reach his ship and launch into space. Only 5 other defense ships made it off the ground. They flew toward the massive alien fleet, knowing they had no chance of winning. "This is Captain Morrison to all ships. We can't stop them, but we can buy time for the evacuation ships to launch." The 6 small human ships attacked the alien fleet. They were like insects fighting giants. The Zethran ships destroyed 4 of them within minutes. Jake's ship took heavy damage but kept fighting. Dr. Carter and her husband reached the underground bunkers, but they were already overcrowded. Thousands of people pushed and shoved trying to get inside. The bunkers could only hold a fraction of the colony's population. "There's no room," someone screamed. Lisa looked at her husband with tears in her eyes. They both knew most of the colonists would die today. Commander Ryan Blake was in the outer system with a small patrol group when the attack began. His ship, the UES Guardian, received the desperate calls from New Haven. "Sir, the colony is under attack. Massive alien force. They're not responding to communication attempts." Ryan felt sick. His sister lived on New Haven with her 2 children. Set course for the planet, maximum speed. But Ryan knew they would arrive too late. By the time his ships reached New Haven, the bombardment had lasted for 6 hours. The beautiful colony was gone. Cities were smoking ruins, farmlands were burned. Wastelands. Lakes had been boiled away by the alien weapons. The few surviving ships that managed to escape carried maybe 50,000 people. 3 million others were dead. Jake Morrison's badly damaged ship limped away from the planet. He had watched his home burn from space. The Zethran fleet was already leaving, their mission complete. They had destroyed New Haven without any explanation or warning. "Why?" Jake whispered as he looked at the dead world below. Why did they do this? The answer would come later, but it would not bring back the dead. The Zethran Dominion had made a terrible mistake. They thought destroying one human colony would frighten Earth into submission. They were wrong. The news of New Haven's destruction reached Earth 3 days later. President Helen Brooks sat in the White House Situation Room, watching the terrible footage that Commander Ryan Blake had transmitted. Burning cities, dead children, and 3 million lives lost in a single day. They didn't even try to communicate, she said quietly. No demands, no warnings. They just murdered everyone. Admiral Pete Collins, Earth's top military commander, studied the attack data. He was a veteran of many conflicts, but this was different. This was pure genocide against innocent civilians. "Madam President, the survivors are certain. The Zethran ships opened fire without any provocation. They targeted schools and hospitals first." Helen Brooks stood up slowly. Her face was hard as stone. "Admiral, I want every military leader on Earth in this room within 6 hours. We're going to make the Zethrans pay for what they've done." Across the country, military bases came alive with activity. Colonel Amy Davis received the call at her Special Operations headquarters in Colorado. She had been expecting this moment since the news broke. "Ma'am, you're ordered to report to Washington immediately," her aide said. Amy knew what this meant. For 20 years, she had trained soldiers for missions that other people said were impossible. Her teams could infiltrate any target, anywhere in the galaxy. Now Earth would need those skills. At the Pentagon, Dr. Alex Turner was studying captured Zethran technology. He was Earth's leading expert on alien biology and engineering. The samples came from previous encounters with Zethran traders, back when relations were peaceful. "Their ships are powerful," he told his research team, "but they have weaknesses. Look at these command systems. Everything runs through central processors. If we can disrupt those..." His assistant engineer, Ben Miller, looked up from his computer. "Doctor, I think I have something. Their sensor arrays use a specific frequency. If we can mask our ships at that exact wavelength, we might be able to approach without being detected." Meanwhile, Captain Kate Williams was preparing her reconnaissance unit at the lunar base. She had spent 5 years learning how to move unseen through alien installations. Her job was to gather intelligence that others couldn't reach. "The Zethrans think they're safe in their own territory," she told her team. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." The emergency meeting in Washington brought together Earth's best military minds. General Tom Hayes commanded the Space Marines. Admiral Collins led the Navy. Colonel Davis ran Special Operations. They all had one question: how do you make an entire alien empire pay for genocide? "The Galactic Council won't help us," President Brooks explained. "They sent a formal complaint to the Zethrans, but nothing more. They say we should accept what happened and move on peacefully." Admiral Collins slammed his fist on the table. "Accept it? 3 million people are dead." The other alien species don't understand, the president continued. They've been at peace so long, they've forgotten what real war looks like. They think a strongly worded letter will solve everything. Colonel Davis leaned forward. What are our orders, Madam President? Helen Brooks looked around the room at her commanders. These were people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. Now they would have to show the galaxy what happened when humans were pushed too far. The Zethran Dominion has declared war on humanity through their actions. We're going to respond in kind. But we're not going to fight like other species. We're going to fight like humans. Dr. Turner presented his research to the group. The Zethrans rely on overwhelming firepower and massive ships. They expect their enemies to meet them in direct battle with equally large fleets. But that's not how we're going to do this. He showed them diagrams of Zethran ship designs and military bases. Their entire system depends on centralized command. Every ship, every base, every weapons platform takes orders from a single location. If we can cut those connections. Ben Miller stepped forward with his stealth technology. Plans. We've developed a new cloaking system that can hide our ships from their sensors. Instead of building bigger ships, we'll build invisible ones. Captain Williams spread out maps of Zethran space. My teams have identified their key installations. Command centers, supply depots, communication relays. We can hit them all simultaneously before they know we're there. Admiral Collins studied the plans with growing excitement. This wasn't the kind of warfare the galaxy was used to. Most alien species fought like medieval armies, lining up massive fleets and battling until one side gave up. Humans had learned to fight smarter. How long before we're ready? He asked. Give us 6 months, Colonel Davis replied. We'll need that time to modify our ships and train our people for deep space operations. President Brooks nodded. You have whatever resources you need. Money, materials, personnel. The entire planet is behind this effort. News of Earth's military buildup spread quickly through human space. Every colony, every space station, every ship wanted to help. Volunteers lined up at recruitment centers. Factories worked around the clock to build new weapons and ships. The survivors from New Haven were given special roles in the planning. Commander Ryan Blake shared his tactical knowledge of the attack. Captain Jake Morrison, still recovering from his injuries, helped design better defense systems for human colonies. Dr. Lisa Carter and her husband Paul worked with the intelligence teams. They had seen the Zethran attack methods up close and knew how to counter them. 6 months later, Earth's new fleet was ready. The ships were smaller than traditional warships, but they were faster, smarter, and completely invisible to Zethran sensors. Each crew had been trained for one purpose, to make the Zethrans pay for New Haven. Lieutenant Commander Laura Hayes stood on the bridge of her new ship, the UES Vengeance. Around her, dozens of similar vessels prepared for the long journey to Zethran space. All ships report ready, Admiral Collins announced over the communication system. Remember, we're not conquerors. We're not invaders. We are justice itself. And we will not stop until every person responsible for New Haven faces the consequences of their actions. The human fleet departed from Earth in complete silence, invisible to any watching eyes. The Zethran Dominion had started this war with an act of genocide. They were about to learn that humanity would finish it. The human fleet reached the edge of Zethran space after 3 weeks of travel. Admiral Pete Collins studied the star maps from his command ship. 12 Zethran outposts protected the border, each one heavily armed and supposedly impossible to attack. All ships maintain stealth mode, he ordered. Remember, we hit fast and disappear. Don't give them time to call for help. Captain Kate Williams and her reconnaissance team had already been inside Zethran territory for 2 weeks. They moved like ghosts through alien installations, gathering information and planting surprises that would activate when the main attack began. Kate crept through the corridors of Outpost 7, her suit making her nearly invisible. The Zethran guards walked past without seeing her. She reached the main computer room and began copying their defense plans. This is too easy, she whispered into her communication device. They're not expecting any kind of infiltration. Sergeant Mike Johnson was busy in the power plant of another outpost. His job was simple but deadly. He placed small explosive devices on key systems throughout the facility. When the time came, these charges would destroy the base from the inside. "Charges set," he reported quietly. "This place will go dark in 30 seconds when we give the signal." Dr. Alex Turner's biological weapon was ready for its first test. The special virus he had created would attack Zethran computer systems, making their automated defenses turn against each other. It spread through their networks like a disease. "Deploying the cyber virus now," Dr. Turner announced from his ship. "Their defense computers should start malfunctioning in 5 minutes." The Zethrans had no idea what was coming. Commander Vex sat in his command center on Outpost 3, reviewing routine patrol reports. His base protected an important supply route that fed weapons to the Zethran fleet. Nothing had ever threatened this facility. Suddenly, alarms began screaming throughout the outpost. Vex jumped up from his chair as his officers shouted confused reports. "Sir, our automated guns are firing at our own ships. The power plant just exploded. We're getting reports of system failures across all sectors." Admiral Collins watched from space as 12 Zethran outposts began destroying themselves simultaneously. The careful planning of 6 months was paying off perfectly. "All attack ships move in now," he commanded. Lieutenant Commander Laura Hayes brought the UES Vengeance out of stealth mode directly above Outpost 7. Her ship's weapons were smaller than traditional warships, but they were precise. Each shot hit exactly where it would cause the most damage. The Zethran ships tried to fight back, but their weapons couldn't lock onto targets they couldn't see. Human ships appeared, fired devastating volleys, and vanished back into stealth mode before the aliens could respond. Outpost 5 sent out a desperate distress call, but Kate Williams had already sabotaged their long-range communications. The message never reached Zethran Command. Each base died alone, cut off from help. Commander Vex watched his base fall apart around him. Half his weapons were offline. His ships were crashing into each other because their navigation systems were infected with the human virus. Enemy vessels appeared and disappeared like ghosts. "How are they doing this?" he screamed at his communications officer. "I don't know, sir. Our sensors can't track them." Mike Johnson's explosives finished their work. Outpost 3's main reactor went critical, sending a pillar of fire into space. The explosion could be seen from the next star system. Within 2 hours, all 12 border outposts were destroyed or abandoned. The Zethran defenders who survived fled in whatever ships still worked. They carried stories of invisible enemies who struck without warning and disappeared like smoke. The human fleet regrouped at a safe distance. Not a single human ship had been lost. The Zethrans' supposedly impregnable border defenses were gone. "Phase 1 complete," Admiral Collins announced. "Now we move deeper into their territory." The news of the border attacks reached the Zethran homeworld 3 days later. High Command was in chaos. 12 military bases destroyed by an enemy they couldn't see or track. It was impossible, but it had happened. Admiral Krex, who had led the attack on New Haven, studied the battle reports with growing fear. "These humans fight like nothing we've ever seen. How do we stop an enemy we can't find?" "Send more ships," suggested General Tharks. "Overwhelming force has always worked before." But Admiral Krex wasn't so sure. The humans weren't fighting like other species. They didn't line up massive fleets for traditional battles. They struck like predators, always from unexpected directions. Meanwhile, the human fleet was already moving toward its next targets. Dr. Turner's virus had spread through the Zethran communication networks, giving Kate Williams access to their most secret military plans. "I have the locations of their main supply depots," she reported to Admiral Collins. "If we hit these facilities, their entire war machine will start to collapse." Colonel Amy Davis was preparing her special operations teams for even more dangerous missions. The border outposts had been just the beginning. Now they would strike at the heart of Zethran military power. "Our next targets are their fleet bases," she explained to her team leaders. "These facilities build and repair their warships. Without them, the Zethran Navy becomes useless." Captain Williams studied the intelligence data. "The main shipyard is on Kepler Station. It's protected by 3 battle fleets and considered absolutely secure. Amy Davis smiled coldly. That's what they said about the border outposts. Ben Miller had been working on new modifications to their stealth technology. I can make our ships even harder to detect. The Zethrans are trying to adjust their sensors, but we'll stay one step ahead. The human fleet moved through Zethran space like a spreading plague. Every few days, another military installation would go silent. Supply convoys disappeared without a trace. Communication relays stopped working. The Zethrans began to panic. Their massive military machine, built to crush enemies through overwhelming firepower, was being taken apart piece by an enemy they couldn't fight. Admiral Krex received another report of destroyed facilities. "How many ships do the humans have?" he demanded. "Our intelligence suggests maybe 200 vessels, sir." 200 ships are destroying our entire border defense network? "Yes, sir, but we can't find them to fight them." High Command decided to recall ships from other sectors to protect their core worlds, but every time they concentrated their forces in one area, the humans would attack somewhere else entirely. Jake Morrison, now recovered from his injuries, had joined the fleet as an intelligence officer. He helped plan each attack, always remembering the burning cities of New Haven. "The Zethrans are learning to fear us," he told Admiral Collins. "Their commanders are making mistakes because they're scared." "Good," the Admiral replied. "Fear makes enemies predictable, and predictable enemies are easy to defeat." The systematic destruction of Zethran military power continued. Each victory brought the human fleet closer to their ultimate goal, making the aliens pay for every life lost on New Haven. The Galactic Council building on Centauri Prime was in complete chaos. Ambassador Rachel Green sat at the human observation table, watching alien delegates argue with each other in panic. The news from Zethran space had reached them that morning, and none of them could believe what they were hearing. "Impossible," shouted the Altarian delegate, his blue skin turning pale. 200 ships cannot destroy an entire military network." The Cetian representative, a tall insect-like creature, clicked his mandibles nervously. "The reports must be exaggerated. The Zethrans are simply making excuses for their failures." But Ambassador Green knew better. She had been receiving regular updates from Admiral Collins. The human fleet was performing exactly as planned, and the Zethrans were falling apart faster than anyone had expected. Council Chairman Vorthak, an ancient reptilian from the Draconis system, called for order. "We are here to discuss the human military actions in Zethran territory. This violence must stop immediately." Rachel Green stood up slowly. Every alien eye in the chamber turned toward her. She was a small woman compared to most of the delegates, but her presence commanded attention. "Chairman Vorthak, with respect, Earth did not start this conflict. The Zethran Dominion murdered 3 million innocent civilians without warning or provocation." "That is ancient history," interrupted the Altarian. "We must focus on stopping this excessive human response." Rachel's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. "Ancient history? It happened 4 months ago, and there has been nothing excessive about our response." She activated a holographic display that showed footage from New Haven. The alien delegates watched in uncomfortable silence as burning cities and dead children filled the air above them. Many had never seen such images before. "These are the people the Zethrans murdered," Rachel continued. "Farmers, teachers, children playing in parks. The Zethran fleet burned them alive for no reason other than hatred." Meanwhile, Admiral Collins was preparing the next phase of human operations. His fleet had moved deep into Zethran core territory, striking at military targets with surgical precision. The aliens' attempts to track human ships had failed completely. "Intelligence reports that Zethran High Command is recalling ships from all sectors," reported Captain Kate Williams. "They're concentrating everything around their homeworld." "Good," Admiral Collins replied. "When they pull their forces back, it leaves their outer colonies defenseless. Colonel Davis, are your teams ready for the next operation?" Colonel Amy Davis nodded grimly. "We've identified the location of Admiral Krex and his staff, the same officers who ordered the attack on New Haven." Dr. Alex Turner had been analyzing captured Zethran communications. "Their military leadership is completely panicked. They're issuing contradictory orders and fighting among themselves." Fear does that to people, observed Jake Morrison. When you can't see your enemy, you start seeing threats everywhere. The Zethran homeworld was now surrounded by their most powerful battle fleets. Admiral Krex paced nervously in his command center, watching sensor displays that showed nothing but empty space. "Where are they?" he muttered. "We know the human ships are out there, but our sensors detect nothing." General Tharks was studying tactical reports. "Sir, we've lost contact with 15 more supply bases in the Outer Rim. The humans are systematically destroying our logistics network." "How are they moving so fast?" "Our intelligence says they only have a few hundred ships. Maybe their ships are faster than we thought, or maybe there are more of them than we know." Neither Zethran officer understood the truth. Human ships weren't faster or more numerous. They were simply invisible and fought, with tactics the aliens had never seen before. Back at the Galactic Council, the emergency session was growing more heated. The Zethran ambassador had arrived to plead for intervention. "The humans are conducting acts of terrorism," he declared. "They attack without warning and disappear like cowards." Rachel Green's response was immediate. "The same tactics your forces used against New Haven. The only difference is that we target military installations, not schools and hospitals." The Altarian delegate tried to restore calm. "Surely there must be a peaceful solution. The Zethrans are willing to offer reparations." 3 billion credits, the Zethran ambassador announced, "and territorial concessions in the Outer Rim." Rachel looked at him with cold eyes. "How much is a child's life worth, Ambassador? Can you put a price on a murdered teacher? On a burned hospital?" The chamber fell silent. Most of the alien species had never faced real war. They had grown soft. Through centuries of peaceful negotiations and diplomatic solutions, the concept of total warfare was foreign to them. Dr. Lisa Carter was now serving as an advisor to the human fleet. She had escaped New Haven's destruction and wanted to help plan the final assault. Her husband Paul worked alongside her, using his engineering knowledge to find weaknesses in Zethran defenses. "The orbital platforms around their homeworld have a critical flaw," Paul explained to the tactical team. "If we can overload their power systems, the entire defense network will collapse." Lisa studied the technical specifications. "I can modify Dr. Turner's virus to target their power grid. It would take about 6 hours to spread through their entire system." Admiral Collins listened to their presentation with growing satisfaction. "How long before we're ready for the final assault?" "Give us 1 week," Lisa replied. "We'll need that time to prepare the virus and position our ships." The Galactic Council session ended without any resolution. The alien delegates returned to their homeworlds, frightened by what they had witnessed. The comfortable assumptions they had held about warfare and diplomacy were crumbling. Chairman Vorthak sent a private message to his government. "The humans are unlike any species we have encountered. Their military capabilities exceed our understanding, and their determination is absolute. We must not allow ourselves to become their enemies." Similar messages were being sent across the galaxy. Species that had once dismissed humans as primitive and barbaric were now reconsidering their opinions. The systematic destruction of Zethran military power was opening everyone's eyes to human potential. Ambassador Green returned to her quarters and composed her daily report to President Brooks. "The Council is terrified. They're beginning to understand that their peaceful methods mean nothing when facing genuine evil. The other species are starting to respect Earth's position." Colonel Tim Brooks, the President's military advisor, was coordinating the final preparations for the assault on the Zethran homeworld. Every detail had been planned with precision. The humans would not repeat the aliens' mistake of targeting civilians. "We go for military targets only," he reminded his staff. "Command centers, weapons platforms, fleet bases. We want the Zethran government to surrender, not to create martyrs." The stage was set for the final confrontation. The Zethran Dominion had concentrated all their remaining forces around their homeworld, believing that superior numbers would finally give them victory. They were about to learn that in human warfare, numbers meant nothing compared to intelligence, determination, and the righteous fury of those seeking justice for the innocent dead. The human fleet arrived at the edge of the Zethran home system like silent death. Admiral Pete Collins stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the massive alien armada that surrounded their homeworld. 300 Zethran warships waited, in defensive formation, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. "Look at them," Colonel Amy Davis said quietly. "They think numbers will save them." Dr. Alex Turner was making final adjustments to the virus that would cripple the Zethran Defense Network. "The orbital platforms are already infected. When I activate the program, their own weapons will turn against them." Captain Kate Williams and her infiltration teams had been inside the Zethran capital city for 3 days. They moved through the underground tunnels like ghosts, placing tracking devices on key government officials and mapping escape routes. "Target acquired," she whispered into her communication device. "Admiral Krex is in the military command center. General Tharks is with him. Both officers who planned the New Haven attack are in the same building." Admiral Collins opened a communication channel to the planet below. His message was broadcast to every screen and speaker on the Zethran homeworld. "This is Admiral Collins of the Earth Fleet. We have come for justice. Surrender the officers responsible for the massacre at New Haven, and your people will be spared. Refuse, and face the consequences." In the Zethran command center, Admiral Krex stared at the communication screen with growing terror. He had been expecting this moment for months, but seeing the human fleet finally arrive made his blood run cold. "How many ships do they have?" he asked his sensor officer. "Our scans detect maybe 50 vessels, sir. Much smaller than our fleet." General Tharks laughed nervously. 50 ships against 300? They must be insane. But Admiral Krex wasn't laughing. He had seen the reports from the border battles. Human ships could appear and disappear at will. Their tactics made no sense according to traditional military thinking. "Send a response," he ordered. "Tell them we refuse their demands." The Zethran government's reply came back within minutes. "We do not negotiate with terrorists. Leave our space immediately or face destruction." Admiral Collins had expected this answer. "Very well, Dr. Turner, activate the virus. All ships, prepare for final assault." The virus spread through the Zethran defense network like wildfire. Within minutes, the massive orbital platforms that protected the homeworld began turning their weapons on each other. Explosions lit up the sky as billion-credit installations destroyed themselves. "What's happening?" General Thark screamed as reports flooded in from across the planet. "Our defense grid is attacking itself. The orbital stations are firing on our own ships." The 300 Zethran warships tried to maintain formation, but chaos was spreading through their ranks. Their command systems were infected with the human virus, causing ships to receive conflicting orders or lose communication entirely. Lieutenant Commander Laura Hayes brought the UES Vengeance out of stealth mode directly above the planet's main military base. Her ship's precise weapons struck the command center's communication towers, cutting off the Zethran leadership from their fleet. Colonel Tim Brooks coordinated simultaneous strikes on 12 key targets across the planet. Human ships appeared from nowhere, destroyed their objectives with surgical precision, and vanished back into stealth mode before the defenders could respond. Captain Jake Morrison, still carrying scars from New Haven's destruction, led a squadron that targeted the Zethran fleet's flagship. His weapons found their mark, and the massive ship exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from orbit. "That's for the children of New Haven," he whispered. The Zethran fleet was falling apart. Without central command, individual ship captains began making their own decisions. Some tried to flee the system. Others attempted to ram human vessels they couldn't see. Most simply drifted helplessly as their systems failed. Admiral Krex watched his military career end in disaster. Every screen in the command center showed the same thing: human victory. His supposedly invincible fleet was being destroyed by an enemy a fraction of its size. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet," his communication officer reported. Admiral Collins appeared on the main screen, his face calm but determined. "Admiral Krex, your fleet is defeated. Your defenses are destroyed. You have one choice left: surrender now, or watch your homeworld burn like New Haven burned." Behind Collins, the Zethran officer could see footage from the colony attack. the same footage that Ambassador Rachel Green had shown to the Galactic Council. Burning cities, dead children, destroyed homes. You did this to innocent people. Collins continued. Now you'll face justice for your crimes. Colonel Davis's Special Forces teams were already moving through the capital city. They had precise intelligence on the location of every officer involved in planning the New Haven attack. One by one, the war criminals were being captured. Captain Williams led the assault on the military command center. Her team moved through the building like professional hunters, bypassing security systems and neutralizing guards without killing unnecessarily. Target acquired, she announced, as her soldiers surrounded Admiral Krex and General Tharks. Both officers are in custody. Dr. Lisa Carter watched the operation from the Fleet Command ship. She had lost friends and colleagues at New Haven, and seeing justice finally delivered brought tears to her eyes. Her husband Paul stood beside her, equally moved by the moment. It's over, he said quietly. They'll finally pay for what they did. The surrender came within hours. With their leadership captured and their fleet destroyed, the remaining Zethran forces had no choice but to give up. White flags appeared on ships throughout the system. Admiral Collins broadcast his final message to the galaxy. The Zethran Dominion has surrendered unconditionally. Those responsible for the New Haven massacre will stand trial for their crimes. Earth's justice has been served. News of the human victory spread across known space within days. The Galactic Council, which had refused to act when humans begged for help, now watched in stunned silence as Earth imposed its own justice. Ambassador Rachel Green addressed the Council one final time. Earth has no interest in joining your organization. We've seen how you respond to genocide. You write letters while innocent people die. She paused to let her words sink in. But understand this. Any future attacks on human colonies will be met with swift and total retaliation. We will protect our own, with or without your approval. The war was over, but its effects would last forever. Species across the galaxy now understood that humans were not the primitive barbarians they had assumed. Earth had demonstrated military capabilities that surpassed anything the galaxy had ever seen. Major Sam Parker, promoted after his heroic actions during the final assault, established the New Haven Memorial Guard on the ruins of the destroyed colony. Their mission was simple: ensure that such tragedies never happen to humanity again. President Helen Brooks addressed the nation from the White House. Justice has been served. The murderers of New Haven will face trial for their crimes. And the galaxy now knows that humanity will never again be victims of unprovoked aggression. Admiral Collins returned to Earth as a hero, but he found no joy in victory. In quiet moments, he remembered the 3 million innocent people whose deaths had made this war necessary. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humans might be newcomers to the cosmic stage, but they fought with a combination of intelligence, technology, and moral conviction that no other species could match. They preferred peace, but when pushed to war, they became an unstoppable force for justice. The Zethran homeworld was placed under human oversight, its government rebuilt to prevent future aggression. War criminals faced trial and punishment. Reparations flowed to the New Haven survivors. But most importantly, the galaxy understood that humanity would never again stand alone against genocide. Earth had proven that human justice, once awakened, was merciless and absolute.